September 1999. Almost Halloween season. 24 years ago. Um, Today is September 2nd, 2023, as I'm recording this. So, I don't know. Just thought that was interesting since I'm doing September of 1999. Long time ago. Anyway, still working at Frame Art. Just living my life. Hanging out with frame art people. So let's get to the books that I read in September of 1999. I think it's a mix, a nice mix. We're starting off with something a little bit different for me, and that is Tom Clancy's Op Center, created by Tom Clancy and Steve Pizzenik. I don't know how you pronounce his name. That's what's on the cover of the book. Created by Tom Clancy and Steve Pizzenik, but since I was able to look it up, I found out that apparently it was actually written by Jeff Rovin. And there's an explosion in Korea and South Korea during a parade, kills a bunch of people, and it could be this group, or it could be this other group, or it could be one of those groups trying to make it look like it was the other group. And the Op Center of the United States is getting involved to stop this from escalating. And I don't recall much. I'm not a huge Tom Clancy fan, but I thought I'd give this a try because I do like thrillers. And I did like Rainbow Six quite a lot. But, it was fine. Not enough. I haven't looked ahead. Don't know if I read any others. But I know I haven't read a lot of Tom Clancy. So, make of that what you will. Second book I read in September of 1999 is Men in Black, The Green Saliva Blues by Dean Wesley Smith. And in this book, the main agents are, double check, J and L. And there's this group of aliens that look like plum trees. And they like eating people. And since they look like plum trees, they can hide anywhere, basically, where you might find trees. So J, I keep wanting to say K, J and L trying to hunt them down. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of different aliens that are orbiting the planet that just want to burn Earth to dust to get rid of these aliens. Figure, burn the whole planet, then they don't have to worry about the plum tree aliens anymore. So, of course, J and L are on the clock. Dean Wesley Smith, it's a decent writer. It's a fun little Men in Black book. Then we have the quintessential World of Darkness, edited by Stuart Week and Anna Branscombe. Horrible with names today. This is the follow-up to the Essential World of Darkness, and it has a story for each of the 5 main World of Darkness games, worlds, whatever. It's all basically the same world, but vampire, werewolf, mage, wraith, and changeling, I believe. Most of the stories are between 100, 200 pages, around that page length, except the changeling story, which is very short. And you've got, like, Rick, I can't pronounce his last name correctly. I've heard it said, but Rick Hatula, I don't know how you say his name. Big horror author. So he's got I think he does the Wraith story. And Jody Lynn Nye, I believe, has one of the stories in here. Anyway, you get your feeling for all the different worlds of darkness, essentially. So if you're into that stuff, the White Wolf, World of Darkness games, you can get a taste of all of that in here. Then we really switched things up because I read Everything and a Kite by Ray Romano, And that is just a comedy book by Ray Romano. If you've seen his show, if you've seen his stand up, say his show. Everybody loves Raymond because he's been in other shows. But again, if you've seen that, if you've seen his stand up, then it's basically like his stand up kind of stuff. It's all about family and pretty funny. I don't dislike Ray Romano. Not one of my favorite comedians, but like I said, I can take him or leave him. Then we have Ender's Shadow by Orson Scott Card. I believe this is only the second book I have ever read by Orson Scott Card. I read Ender's Game. Really, I think that's a great book, as problematic as Orson Scott Card may be. Ender's Game is a great book. I tried to read the second book in that series and could not get into it at all. But Ender's Shadow seemed interesting. So essentially, Ender's Shadow, the main character is a kid named Bean, and it's a parallel story to Ender's Game. So we're seeing Bean go through basically the same thing that Ender has gone through, but just a step behind, I think. And it wasn't bad. It was definitely better than the other one that I tried to read. Speaker for the Dead, I think, is the one. So if you like Ender's Game, I think Ender's Shadow is a good companion to it. But I don't support Orson Scott Card. And then we have a little more comedy. Tracy Takes On by Tracy Ullman. And this is essentially, it's a comedy book about all the different characters that Tracy Ullman has played. So and their thoughts on things, including their thoughts on Tracy Ullman. If you like her comedy stylings, then I think you'd enjoy this book. I was a fan of Tracy Ullman back in the day. Thought this was funny. Excuse me. Now, Subterranean by James Rollins. This is James Rollins' first novel. It is about under the icy crust of either the Arctic or the Antarctic, I can't recall. There's like a labyrinth of tunnels and stuff. This expedition is going down there because a previous expedition had gone down there and never returned. So now another group is going to search for them, and shit goes crazy. I love this book. I've read it more than once, and this was my introduction to James Rollins. It has a very Preston and Child feel to it. Their non-Pendergast stuff, early non-Pendergast stuff, more so than, well, some of the early Pendergast stuff as well. But anyway, really, really fun, adventurous. I want to say things, but I don't want to spoil it because this is absolutely a book that I recommend. And we're going to see James Rollins popping up more and more. I should have checked to see. I don't think I have this. I think I have a different one. I need to rebuild my James Rollins collection. I stopped reading his stuff when the Da Vinci Code became huge. James Rollins, and I don't know if there's any connection, but James Rollins started writing books about the Sigma team. Is that his? I don't know, because there seemed to be these authors that I liked that suddenly started doing very Da Vinci Code type books, and I just sort of lost interest in what they were doing. But I like this adventurous thing. There's no hidden codes, no great mystery. I mean, there's a bit of mystery, what's going on, what's in these tunnels, what happened to the team that was there first. But we're not following these weird, obscure national treasure type or Da Vinci Code type clues. Subterranean, James Rollins. Great book. Followed that up with Strangewood by Christopher Golden. And this is about a guy who has written a series of children's books about Strangewood. It's the biggest selling kids series since The Wizard of Oz. It's very Wizard of Oz esque, but he's a divorced father, and his son goes into a coma, and essentially has been spirited away to Strangewood. Turns out Strangewood is a real place, and his father, the author of the books, has to go there and save his son. It's fun. The new edition, I looked this up on Amazon. I absolutely love the cover of the new edition. The one that I had, the one that I read, the cover was just like, meh. If I remember correctly. New cover, fantastic. It's Christopher Golden. It's fun stuff. And then finally, we've got two books. The penultimate and the final. That makes sense. They're the first two books in a trilogy. Unlike, July and August. I ended July with the first two books of a trilogy and started August with the third book. That's not going to happen here. I'm ending September with the first two books of a trilogy. Not going to get to the third book until mid-October, which I mean is one video away, but still. Anyway, this is, the penultimate book, Trilogy of the Blood Curse, Book 1, The Devil's Advocate, by Gerbod Fleming. No idea if that's how you pronounce Gherbod, but that's how I say it. So this is a Vampire the Masquerade novel, World of Darkness, White Wolf, and this is modern day, whereas the previous trilogy, the Grail's Covenant, was back in the Dark Ages. This is modern day, but it does tie in. And our main character is a vampire named Owain. Owain? That's how I'm pronouncing it. But basically, the blood curse is this plague that drives vampires into an insatiable hunger. They can't control themselves. They become ravenous. They're just leaving corpses everywhere. And eventually they die. The vampires die. So Owain is trying to figure out what's causing this, trying to keep the masquerade in place, trying to keep the Camarilla and the Sabbat and all these different factions and groups from tearing each other apart. And this is the first book. It's setting all of this up. And then the last book I read was Trilogy of the Blood Curse, Book 2, The Winnowing, by Gerbod Fleming. And this obviously a continuation of the story. We learn some things about Owain and his loyalties, but the masquerade is falling apart. The antediluvians may be returning, and there are some vampires that want that to happen. There's some vampires trying to keep everything together, but this plague, the blood curse, is just ripping everything apart, and the story's just building and building. We're not going to find out what happens until the last book, which will be in next week's video. So that's it. That is what I read in September of 1999. As usual, I did not bother to think of a question ahead of time. So, let's do this. Something a little different. Who's your favorite comedian? And have you ever read any books that they've written? That loud noise means I got a text. I don't know who it's from or what it says. And I won't find out till I'm done making this video. Anyway, your favorite comedian, who is it? Has it changed over time? Because mine certainly has. Way back in the day, I thought Dennis Miller was absolutely hilarious. I do think that stuff from way back in the day is still hilarious, what I remember of it. But he has certainly changed. I'm not interested in anything he has to say nowadays. Favorite though, I mean, there's so many that I watched all the time. I mean, I grew up with Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin, and watched Richard Belzer doing stand up, and Robin Williams. Nowadays, there's a young lady, and I can't remember her name. It's horrible. I find her absolutely hilarious. Um, Terrible, terrible. I think she's short. Not that that means anything. She talks about growing up in a religious household. A lot of self-deprecating humor. I can't believe I've watched a ton of her stand-up stuff, and I can't think of her name. If I had some sort of, if I had a clue, my own clue to look up who she is. Let's see. I'm gonna do this real quick. You get to watch me play on my phone. I'm just gonna Google top female comedians. Um, let's see. So, who do you like? Have you read any books by them? Top female comedians. Let's go with 2023. Yeah, I love Sarah Silverman. I find her very funny. There it is, right there. Taylor Tomlinson. Love Taylor Tomlinson. She's absolutely hilarious. She came up as number one. Number 8 of 25 in the raunchiest female comedians. 4 of 100 on the most attractive female comedians. Don't know why that's on there. But yes, Taylor Tomlinson, absolutely hilarious. So, so funny. And just on this list, we have Eliza Schlesinger. I've read her book. I like her. She's funny. Nikki Glazer. Kate McKinnon. I think Kate McKinnon is funny. Natasha Leggero. She's funny. Ali Wong. I mean, obviously, this is a list of the top female comedians. Anyway, so if I had to pick off the top of my head, absolute favorite, man, Steve Martin was so good. I've read his books. I had his albums. Um, as usual, I have a difficult time choosing my favorite things. Um, but I've thrown some names out there. I did think Dennis Miller's books were hilarious. Steve Martin's books were hilarious. Obviously, if you've watched this whole series, you've seen I've read a lot of, relatively speaking, a lot of books by a lot of different comedians. They're usually, if you find the comedian funny, you're going to find their books funny. But let me know about your comedy tastes in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And if you're on Blue Sky, I'm at EL Smith. That's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.